Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, and today we're going to take another look at a subgroup team, the Predacons. I want to inform y'all that the Predacons were originally intended to be shown this month, as their combined form of Predaking was originally intended to close out Combiner Month this month, but I got somebody else that I think many of you might like more than seeing them. Eventually there will be a review of Predaking, but for right now, and because it was requested by YouTube subscriber Jessica Villain, we're going to take a subgroup review of the Predacons. Now, the Predacons consist of 5 robots here. We got Rampage, soon to be a movie based off the old 80s video game. We got Dive Bomb. We have their leader, Razor Claw. And then right here on the end, we got Tantrum there in the back, and Headstrong here in the front. These are the 5 Predacons. They were released in 1986 with a lot of the other combiners. They were also available in 1987. Then they would be discontinued in 1988. The Predacons are a special subgroup, along with their combiner Predaking, due to the fact of how they were released. These guys were not released in the standard method that a lot of the other combiners had been released at that time. In 1986, when they came out, the combiners were shifted from the way they had been with Devastator in the form of 6 small robots, but instead they had changed the format over to be 1 large robot to serve as the body and 4 small robots to be the limbs. The Predacons changed the mold again that year by being a group of 5 medium-sized robots. So all 5 of these guys were available in box, which I don't have with me at the moment. I'll have to go get one of them. So all 5 of these guys were sold in a box, slightly bigger than the Insecticons that were available at that time, but just also slightly smaller than the large combiner boxes, or even, for that fact, a large Transformer box at that time. So they were kind of on the expensive side, so kids trying to save their allowance for them, these guys were pretty difficult to acquire. Okay, during that little bit of a pause, we went and got a box for them. This is Headstrong's box. As you can see, this is also the Canadian version of his box. But this gives you a general size as to how big the box was, especially when we compare it to, say, right here we got next to it, we got Motormaster's box. Set it on top there, and you can see, well, Headstrong's there is a little bit bigger, wasn't quite as long, so price point for these guys might have been about the same. Maybe a slight difference, kind of hard to say since neither of them here have any of their old price tags on them, so we're left more or less to guess. But as you can see, with them being of that size, they would not have been easy to obtain for a child trying to buy it with their allowance. They'd have to save up for considerable weeks to get these guys. I mean, thankfully, since they were available for 2 years, you had the chance to get them, but there was probably a few parents that had kids doing extra chores to try to get some money to buy these toys. Now, of course, here is where the Predacons get their name from, is the fact that they become 5 wild beasts. Although certain twosome over there are not generally known as predatory animals. Short-tempered, yes, but predatory, no. So, bit of a misnomer, but let's take a good look at them. Get the camera here on the tripod so we can really get a good look at him. This is Rampage, who becomes a tiger, and is a bit of a music video fan. Maybe he's a fan of that Survivor song, Eye of the Tiger. Or do you fans think he prefers Katy Perry's Roar? Of course, the flying member of the group, we have Dive Bomb, who's an eagle. Maybe he can become the de facto mascot of the post office this time of the year. Those of you who are waiting on packages from the post office for Christmas, you know what I'm talking about. And we have, of course, their leader, Razor Claw, fittingly as a lion. Probably with that sword in his hands in robot mode, he'd be ready to go take on Lion-O of the Thundercats. One thing's for sure, he can take down Simba 8 ways from Sunday. And we got one of the strange ones here. We got Tantrum. Some say he's intended to be a buffalo. There are some that say he's a bull. He's kind of got traits for both. He's probably the important member of the group, as these gray tanks here on his shoulders and right here on the back of his legs, these are fuel tanks. Tantrum carries extra fuel, so that would allow them to stay out on their missions a little longer, or have a greater distance to patrol, since he's carrying the fuel. And then lastly, we've got Headstrong, who is obviously Rhinoceros. And probably one of the more aggressive members of the team. Let's just hope he's not as short-sighted as a rhinoceros is. Looking upon this group, it's a pretty decent group. They do embody a lot of the traits of their animal counterparts. Some of it for good, but not entirely all of it. Those will be covered individually on their own respective reviews. But their animal modes are quite interesting, a nice change from a lot of the vehicle-centric Transformers that we did have. And of course, they just all look pretty good in this grouping. Nothing's really stated about what their function would be as a group. I would like to think of it as probably long-range recon and patrol, due to the fact that they have the hunting instincts that that at least these three animals would have, as opposed to those two. But you got a quick attacker and you've got the fueler, so that kind of compensates for that. And of course, with you having Dive Bomb, who can fly, you've got somebody that can keep an eye from the skies. And of course, one can't conclude a review about the Predacons without showing off their combined form, Predaking. Just take a look at this mighty monster. And that's saying a lot, because Predaking was the largest of the G1 combiners. The only thing that dwarfs Predaking are the GoBot power suit units of Courageous and Grungy, but those don't count, really, due to the fact that The limbs on that were built big enough for a small GoBot to stand in it, so that really doesn't count. So Predaking reigns supreme over them all. So what do I think of the Predacons? The Predacons are an interesting group. It's a shame that they really didn't get much coverage in the Transformer media, as they did appear sporadically throughout Season 3 of the animated cartoon, but they really didn't do much for their character, which is, in my mind, a real shame. These guys, when you read their personal bios, they all have a lot of character to them. As a unit, when they're combined as Predaking, they do seem to function at a higher degree than to many of the other combiners that were available at the market, Decepticon or Autobot. So, as a unit, they do function pretty well. They just got to deal with the odd quirks that each one of them has. Since we got one guy obsessed with music videos and reality television, a couple of guys with severe anger issues, and somebody that waits for a perfect moment to make his attacks. But if you could overcome those odd quirks that they all have, you'd find you'd have yourself a pretty devastating little unit. All in all, I'm going to put the Predacons as a group among the top tier of the toys. They were definitely hard to acquire as when you were a child saving up your allowance for them. But I think overall the motif for them works. It's one of the few combiner groups that you look at and you can see it works. Each individual toy may not be necessarily a top-tier toy, but as a group, their strengths do tend to overcome their weaknesses. And that was my thoughts and review of the Predacons as a group. If you like this video, please thumbs up it here on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't done so already. Please also consider leaving a like and share your thoughts on the Predacons in the comments section down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying catch you all later for the rest of Combiner Month.